Mercedes Mone, AEW TBS champion, and got one of them, I think it was a Stardom belt, a Shine belt. I don't know what the other belts she got, but she got a lot of belts. She has 10 belts. She tied Ultimo Dragon for most belts. She's held like the most belts any one woman has ever held in the history of wrestling, I'm thinking. And it's an impressive feat. Now, it's too bad that it doesn't mean anything beyond that. Like, congratulations, you've now earned 10 belts. And make no mistake about it, Mercedes Mone is a great wrestler. She is a proper generational talent. I will say that. I will admit that. Her run as Sasha Banks in WWE was amazing. It's a Hall of Fame worthy career off of that alone. You couple that with what she did in Japan and the stuff she's been doing in AEW, that's impressive beyond measure. But now you throw in this stuff of carrying 10 belts at once, and it quadruples the level of impressiveness that this woman's career is in. But it doesn't mean anything. You know why? Because we don't see those belts. Those belts are just props. We don't see those belts outside of when she's coming down to the ring and that's it. We don't see those belts being defended. When AEW does that thing where they tell you what their wrestlers were up to off camera, say a wrestler comes in wearing a belt from another promotion, like say when Jon Moxley would come down and he had the New Japan US title, they would mention like, oh yeah, here comes, New Japan US champion Jon Moxley. He beat Juice Robinson, or I can't remember that other guy's name, but Juice Robinson, or that guy, Joey Janela, he defended that title recently and he's coming down to fight whoever the heck he's going to fight. They would do some stuff like that, and they'd make sure to mention if a champion won it. If an AEW wrestler won a title in another promotion and was showing up with that promotion's title on AEW TV, they would make sure to tell you what that title is and how they won it. With Mercedes Mone's belts, that doesn't matter. Like, 8 of those belts don't mean anything when Mercedes Mone comes down the ring. They're just props. It's like a gold chain that a rapper wears. Yeah, that means something. That probably has some significance. If it's like a cross, or like with Tupac and the Death Row Records chain. But the rest of those chains and the rings and the bracelets and accompanying jewelry, they don't mean anything. You could remove those and no one would notice anything. All they care about is that one big chain that the guy has on, because it's the Death Row chain. It's the one with the most significance. The one main title that means anything that she's got on in terms of AEW is the TBS title, because that's the belt that's defended. That's the belt the commentators talk about. That's the belt in terms of, significance on AEW TV, and the matches that we see her having has the most significance of all those other belts. Those belts that she has on probably have longer histories and have had a longer list of champions to them and have greater significance where they're from. But on AEW, on Collision or Dynamite or wherever, especially on pay-per-views, those other belts are just props. They don't mean anything. She won those. She got 10 titles to her name, and okay, now what? Are you going to defend all those belts every week on TV? Are people from those promotions going to show up on AEW TV challenging you for those titles? No, they're not. Then they don't mean anything. Are we going to see highlights of the matches you had defending all those titles in those various different promotions, the different opponents you face? No, we're not. Then they don't mean anything. They're just props. That's what my biggest issue is. The belts don't mean anything. If AEW turns it around and actually makes those belts mean something, and people from those promotions show up on TV and challenge her for that belt, like Christian Cage challenged Kenny Omega for the Impact title, and he took the title with him back to Impact or some shit like that, that could work. That could be something. You could definitely make a story out of that. And it worked when Kenny Omega had all those belts. I mean, not all the belts, mind you, but the Impact and AEW belts had the same level of importance to them because they were treated with the same level of importance. They were both world titles, and people from those respective companies were both vying for those titles. If you got 10 belts to your name, you should have 10 opponents vying for you. You can't have 10 belts to your name and only have one challenger. It makes the other belts look irrelevant. It's like, what are these other belts? You could lose these other belts and you'd have the same level of relevance attached to you. And when Kenny Omega did lose the Impact title, it did make a difference. It changed something in him because, well, after that, we started seeing less of those other belts, and we, started seeing like him hanging on to the AEW belt even more. So if Mercedes Mone were to lose one of her 10 belts and it wasn't TBS title, would you even notice? Would it even matter? No, because nobody brings it up. There isn't a moment where, like, she'll be at an interview and the whole I've seen pictures of her where the whole table is just decked out with all the belts she's won, and that's cool. But it isn't going to be, but when she comes down the ramp, they're going to say, coming down the aisle, it's TBS champion Mercedes Mone. They're not going to say TBS champion, Stardom champion, Never champion, and CXW champion or GZW champion. They're not going to list all those fucking belts. You know why? Because they don't freaking matter. It's just, The way to solve this, granted, I need to restate, I don't hate Mercedes Mone. She's actually really good. I don't hate that she has 10 belts. That's an impressive thing. I hate that she's not doing it. Well, not she isn't doing anything, but I hate that the company she works for isn't doing anything. You have the most decorated women's wrestler at the time currently working for you, and it's like you may as well have one belt. She's booked as if she's only got one belt. The one belt that matters. The damn TBS belt. No one cares about the other belts. No one challenges her for the other belts. No one mentions to enough degree the other belts. It's the one belt that counts, and that's the TBS title. And it's very concerning. Like, the only time we see mention of those other belts is when she's discussing them outside AEW. And it's like, why are you even bothering to show them on TV if you're not going to do anything with them? I know companies have all this thing, like, I don't know, there's probably some like forbidden door nonsense, but like AEW is all about breaking down the forbidden door. They're all about like shows with CMLL or New Japan. So if you got, that kind of stuff, why don't you have crossover events with these other shows? If you're willing to show that show's championship belts on your TV show, have somebody from that company come to your TV show and be like, yeah, I'm challenging you for this title on this TV show. That way you get to give some shine to this other promotion. You get more eyes on your channel, and you get a title match that you previously might not have been able to book, as opposed to having one of your stars show up on another, wrestling company and have the big match there and letting them get all that shine. But yeah, it's just the thing, the 10 belts situation. Some people view it as a problem. I don't see it as a problem. I mean, it's a problem in the way that there's so much more that could be done with it, and it's solvable. And so much more that could still be done with this. And you can still turn it around and turn it into like a legendary thing. When Roman Reigns won both belts, he had to take on both rosters. It wasn't a case of he won the Universal title and the WWE title, and he stayed on SmackDown. He stayed defending only on SmackDown. He only ever appeared on SmackDown. He did have to show up on Raw, and he did get challenged by people from Raw. So when you got multiple belts, you should have multiple challenges. You should be, the level of status you have when you got more than one belt to your name should be raised up. It should mean something that you have 2 belts. So yeah, but if you have 10 belts to your name, that should mean significantly more. Like, holy shit, you should be the most important woman in the entire division at that point, because you're arguably the most successful. But that point could be made that Toni Storm's title reign largely overshadows Mercedes Mone's TBS title reign. But that's a discussion for another day. Yeah, folks, those are my thoughts on Mercedes Mone and the whole brouhaha behind her having 10 titles to her name. It's an impressive feat, and I applaud it. I just wish more was done with it. That's all I got to say on that, folks. Thanks for tuning in. And yeah, we are who we are. No point arguing with ourselves or anyone else about it. Enjoy the rest of your week.